Hello and welcome to this video. What we're moving on to now is the idea of currency exchange. Okay, so that means currency, that's just money, and it means changing it for other currencies, other types of money. Okay, for example, when you go on holiday, if you go somewhere in Europe, you'll want to change your pounds for euros. If you go into America, you'll want to change your pounds for dollars, that sort of thing. Okay, that's what this is all about. Okay, the maths involved is fairly simple, and we're going to keep it simple, keep it a nice sort of little short, hopefully easy to follow section. But there's one thing we need to know, or a term we need to know, and that is something called the exchange rate. And the exchange rate is a measure of how much you get for what you've given. Okay, so we'll give it quite a sort of a general definition and then talk about specifically what that means for us and at this level. Okay, so exchange rate is how much other currency you get for, we'll go with 1 unit of your currency. Okay, now for us, our currency is pounds, and pretty much all the examples we're going to do and any questions you'll get will be assuming that. Okay, and by 1 unit, the way it's normally done is 1 unit means £1. So when you see an exchange rate given, it means how much currency you'll get for every pound you give them. Okay? So if you go into the post office, somewhere which is where you'd normally get them, for every pound they'll give you a certain amount of the other currency, and that's the exchange rate. Okay? Now, before we do any calculations for this, one thing we need to remember is that we're dealing with money, okay? And that means we have to do or take something into account when we're rounding, okay? Now, money is done to 2 decimal places, remember, okay? For the pence involved, that will come into place with these sorts of questions, okay? You need to be able to round to 2 decimal places properly and consistently to do this, okay? Right, so let's move on and have a look at it. Okay, so an exchange rate, like I said, is how much you get for your pound, and it's just a number. Okay, so you'll be given a number, and that's the exchange rate. Okay, and that number is tied to a currency. Now, you might get different exchange rates in different places, so that means you might get a bit more dollars if you change at the post office as opposed to changing at the bank or something like that. Okay, but you've probably seen sort of boards like this before anyway, okay? And they basically look like a table where they will give a currency like dollar, and then there'll be a number next to it, and that's the exchange rate, okay? Now, I'm making these numbers up, so don't go checking because they will not be accurate, but it might say 1.21, okay? Then we might have one that says euro, and that says 0.89. Like say yen, which is what they use in Japan, and that might say 320. I've got completely blank on another currency. Let's go with pesos. Can't remember if they're still used or if they've been changed to be euros. But pesos, and I'm just going to pick a random number here, guys. So again, don't check it out. 2.15. Okay. Now, what this means is, if you're trying to get some dollars because you're going on holiday to somewhere that uses dollars, the exchange rate is 1.21. So that means for every pound you give them, they'll give you $1.21. For every pound you gave them, they'd give you 0.89 euros. For every pound you gave them, they'd give you 320 yen. And for every pound you gave them, they'd give you 2.15 pesos. And that's how the exchange rate works. Okay, so we're going to use these numbers here for these examples we look at. So let's look at some examples. Okay, let's say nice easy example to start with, and we're not even going to give any context. We're just going to say what is £10 in dollars. Okay, keep it nice and simple. Okay, so for every pound I have in dollars, I'm getting 1.21. Okay, so that means it's 1 times 1.21. So what I do here is, if I've got £10, well then I do 10 times the exchange rate. So it's 10 times 1.21. Okay, now you can pop this on your calculator. Okay, and that means I get 12.10. Okay, so I'd get $12.10 if I gave them £10. Okay, that's how exchange rates work. Okay, you just times the number of pounds you have by the exchange rate, and that's as simple as we're going to keep it for the time being. Okay, so let's look at now a different example with a bit more context. Okay, let's say Sam is going to France. She has £120 to change to euros. How many would she get? Okay, so she's off on holiday to France, maybe she's off to work, not anywhere at the moment, but let's pretend. So she has £120 and she wants to change that into euros. Okay, so what you do is you take that 120 and you times that by the exchange rate. So she's wanting it changed into euros, so the exchange rate for euros is 0.89. So what we do is we do the 120 times by 0.89. Okay, I'm definitely going to need my calculator for this one. So 120 times 0.08, sorry, made a mistake, 120 times 0.89, and that gives me, you can see here, 106.8. Okay, so symbol for euros, doesn't matter if you get your symbols wrong, it's okay, is 106.8, but it's money, it's 2 decimal places, so we'll put a 0 on the end. So that means if I went up to the post office and said, right, I'm off on holiday, need some euros because I'm going to France, I've got £120, how much will you give me? They'd give me €106.80. Okay, that's how this works. It's as simple as that. It's timesing how much money you have in pounds by the exchange rate. Okay, so let's look at one more. I'm going to write this one out while it's paused, so you don't have to waste time watching it. Just give me 1 second. Okay, and as if by magic, another question's appeared, and I've added a little extra to it. Okay, so Harry went to Japan with a budget of £300 to spend. If he spent 99,200 yen, which is the currency in Japan, was he in budget? Okay, so what we need to do then is work out what his budget was in yen. Okay, and to do that, it's just like these other two questions. We'll take his money he had in pounds, so that's 300, and we'll times that by the exchange rate. So the exchange rate this time is 320. Okay, so 300 by 320 is 96,000 yen. Okay, so his budget was 96,000 yen, but he spent 99,200 yen. Was he in budget? Well, no, he wasn't, because 99,200 is bigger than 96,000. So using the exchange rate, we were able to work out whether he was on budget or not by how much he spent. Okay, but they can be quite picky in maths. Okay, so we need to specifically say our answer and make it very clear. Okay, so we say no, he wasn't in budget because 96,000 is less than 99,200. Okay, so no, he wasn't in budget because the amount he spent was less than, sorry, he wasn't in budget because his budget was less than how much he spent. Okay, that's how exchange rates work. Okay, they're very simple, nice one-step calculation on your calculator. Multiply how much you have in pounds by the exchange rate. Okay, and just be careful. You use the exchange rate for the right currency, and when you do it surrounding it to 2 decimal places, because obviously we don't get something like £5 and 365 pence or anything like that. Okay, make sure your answer makes sense. Okay, right, thank you for listening. Hopefully you understood that, and goodbye.